Hello, everyone. I'm Rod Alberts, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Queued Up Mobility. These sessions, brought to you by our good friends at Deloitte, are intended to bring you the latest news from some of the leading companies in the mobility sector. As a reminder, if you ever miss a broadcast or you want to rewatch a session, you can find them on our website at naies.com. I'm sure you have noticed that our automotive industry is in the middle of a revolution. Nearly every OEM is talking about the electrification of their lineup, which makes the all-electric world seem much more of a reality than a fantasy. Here today to talk about this trend are the CEOs from QuantumScape, Romeo Power, and XL Fleet. They will discuss the current power landscape in the EV market, the overall outlook for 2021, and what the future holds. That being said, I'll turn it over to the panel to start this discussion.
Thank you so much, Rod, and thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Hope King. I'm a business reporter with Axios, and I have the great pleasure of moderating today's discussion with QuantumScape, Romeo Power, and XL Fleet. Just a quick rundown of what to expect. We'll chat for about 30 to 35 minutes with our panelists. We've got some prepared questions, and then we'll take your questions for about 10 minutes. To put your questions in, you can go into slido.com, and then the event there is NAIAS. You can type your question, hit submit, we'll get it queued up, and we'll get going. All right, with that, let's get started. Our topic this afternoon is navigating the path to an all-electric world with three parts of the EV value chain. We've got QuantumScape, that's solid-state lithium metal batteries. We've got Romeo Power, which is energy-dense commercial battery packs and battery management systems. And we've also got the electrified powertrain for fleets and charging infrastructure with XL Fleet. So before we get started with the questions, I'd like to introduce each of our panelists this afternoon, starting with Jagdeep Singh. Jagdeep Singh is the co-founder and the CEO of QuantumScape. This is a leading battery developer that provides next-generation solid-state lithium metal battery technology designed to make electric vehicles safer, to make them charge faster, to go further, to last longer, and to cost less. Prior to QuantumScape, Jagdeep founded and led three other tech companies, most recently Infinera Corporation, which is a telecom company, and that was from 2001 to 2009. So Jagdeep, welcome. And we also have Lionel Selwood Jr. He's the president and CEO of Romeo Power, an energy technology leader developing and delivering large-scale electrification solutions for complex commercial applications. Prior to joining Romeo, Lionel held several positions in operations and in engineering at SpaceX, at GE, and Faraday Future. Lionel, welcome. And finally, we have Dmitry Kazarinov, who is the CEO of XL Fleet. This is a leading provider of fleet electrification solutions for commercial vehicles. And prior to joining XL, Dmitry successfully scaled the hybrid power systems division of Eaton Corporation by 15x within just 2 years. So Dmitry, welcome as well. So all of you are taking your time out of your day to join us to talk about the big story in the auto sector right now, which is really from your perspective, representing from your different companies, different facets of that EV powertrain. So I want to start off with just having each of you talk about where exactly you sit in the EV landscape and how your technology plays into the future of this transformation we're seeing. Jagdeep, please kick us off.
Thanks, Hope. Yeah, so QuantumScape is a next-gen battery supplier. So the battery obviously is one of the key parts of the powertrain. It's really the part that stores the energy that drives the car, and that's the part that we do. So we make cells. We provide those cells to our automotive OEMs. The automotive OEMs put them into packs, and then, of course, add the other components of the powertrain, from motors to the power electronics and so on. But our fundamental focus really is on batteries that can deliver a level of performance that enables EVs to be competitive with the combustion engine, and that's kind of, in our view, the missing link. So we're happy to be able to focus on that core piece.
And Lionel, why don't you take the next one here?
Sure. And to piggyback off of Jack, Romeo Power is a leading-edge battery technology provider, and what we focus on is putting the most safe, reliable, energy-dense, and configurable battery pack technology on the road. So what we do is we qualify the best cells or help develop the best cells and we utilize our proprietary design and production language and put forth leading-edge battery packs and battery management systems, particularly in the severe duty industry. So right now, we are allowing 300 miles on a single charge, and we're driving forward to get to 500 miles on a single charge in the future.
And Dimitri, please talk about how XL Fleet fits into all of this.
Yeah, so XL Fleet is a fleet electrification solutions provider. And we have hybrid, plug-in hybrid systems available for our customers today. Also, charging infrastructure. We've got over 4,000 systems on the road, over 150 million customer miles on those systems. So we're really trying to drive sustainability into the commercial fleet market.
Now, all of you must have had a pretty exciting week watching the administration unveil what they plan for the future of transportation. And I want to start with some of the factors that have really led to the production of the cars that we're seeing now, these EVs that might be a little bit cheaper, might be, in some ways more appealing to consumers. And the heart of all of this, right, is these batteries that have to be safer, have to be cheaper and longer lasting. So with all these factors kind of combined to really have that potential now come to fruition, what challenges do you each see within this industry that you still need to overcome to make EVs still very competitive on a cost basis, on an appeals basis versus these traditional internal combustion engines? So Jagdeep, I want you to kind of lead this off first.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, it's great to see the administration's commitment to this energy transformation. It's fantastic to see top level support for electrification of the fleet, including charging stations, including incentives to buy EVs and so on. Having said that, no amount of government support is going to drive EVs into the mainstream. And at the end of the day, the vehicles have to be competitive with combustion engines. The vehicles have to be desirable. People have to want to drive them. The good news is that there's the potential for all that to happen. The vehicles can be very desirable, very competitive, but from our perspective, there has to be a step change improvement in the battery. Today's batteries, as you pointed out just a minute ago, really they fall short on a number of the key metrics. I mean, the biggest line item in the bill of materials of EVs is the battery pack. The charge time limitations come from the battery. The range limitations have to do with the energy density of the battery. The safety issues, those are all fundamentally related to the battery. And so our view has been that really in order to enable this transformation to happen, what you need is a battery that can compete with the combustion engine. And to do that, you can't just rely on incremental improvements that have been going on for the last few decades in the battery world of 3 to 5% per year. You need a new chemistry. And so what we've been focused on is a new chemistry that involves a lithium metal anode with a solid state separator or solid state electrolyte. And that combination ends up being theoretically the highest energy density configuration you can have on the anode, enabling us then to deliver cells that have 50 to 80% greater range or energy density than conventional cells, so 1,000 watt hours per liter instead of say 700. You can fast charge these cells in 15 minutes instead of about an hour for normal batteries. You get better life characteristics. You have safer operation and lower costs. So it all comes from that step change in the chemistry, and we believe that's really that has to go hand in hand with the support that we're seeing from the administration, which is fantastic. But those two kind of go together.
Okay, so it's not going to be this really one solution to enable something larger here. Lionel, from your perspective, what do you see still being a challenge that you would like to overcome through Romeo?
Well, a challenge that we've overcome already, which Jagdeep touched on, first and foremost, as the leaders of the industry, safety is number one. So all of our solutions are single cell fault tolerant, which means that if one cell goes into thermal runaway, it does not propagate into the neighboring cells. Again, this is verified internally at Romeo as well as by Underwriters Laboratory. So safety first and foremost, unfortunately, is not table stakes with our competitors. So we really focus on that as a number one priority across Romeo. Then the second, of course, is the reliability aspect that, again, Jagdeep touched on. I mean, today we've been delivering to the largest OEMs in the world. We have more than 700,000 plus miles and counting with trucks in the hands of fleet customers. So ensuring that you have a robust vehicle, robust truck is extremely important. And then you get to the range. So the biggest challenge, and I've been vocal about this before, again, today we're going 300 miles on a single charge or our largest capacity batteries and charging in 30 minutes on a single, in 30 minutes. We need to get to that 500 miles on a single charge and charging in 15 minutes, especially up market. Because like we said, Romeo Power, we're focused on the severe duty industry, whether it's terminal tractors or cement trucks or over the road, cab overs, etc. That's what we're focusing on. So we want to get to that 1,000-mile day where you 500 miles on a single charge, you charge when you're eating lunch, and then you go back on the road for another 500 miles. So I think that is when the Class 8 becomes an absolute no-brainer. I mean, we're ahead of everyone else today, but we need to get to that 500 plus miles on a single charge, which I'm highly confident we'll get.
And in terms of the sort of innovation that you both are working on, respectively, a lot of it is trial and error. So let's talk a little bit more about your development process. What have been some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way, and that maybe, you can talk about some of the things that you've had to overcome as well, maybe internally or just going through that development process to kind of go to where you need to go make this more, a lot safer, and also with the reliability aspect. So Lionel, I want to start with you on this one.
Sure. So actually, it wasn't a challenge. I'll talk about when we started our company. One of our biggest goals, one of the big audacious goals, if you will, we said we wanted to build one of the world's best test validation laboratories. So at Romeo, we have anywhere from the cell science engineering laboratory to a validation laboratory where we have anything from AV900s, chillers, vibration tables simulating hundreds of thousands of miles at the module level, down to our blast chambers, etc. So we have a fully enclosed end-to-end reliability and validation capabilities at Romeo. This is why we're able to, our technology today on the module level, for example, is able to withstand 25 Gs of force in any direction. We validated that internally. So our approach has been always making sure that we qualify, starting at the cell level, the absolute best cells that are available from a safety, reliability, energy density standpoint. We scale up that same mantra to beat the module to a pulp, get it to the pack level, and make sure that we really push the technology before we put it in the hands of our customers. And then when we get to our customers, we partner hand in hand with them to do a very robust test campaign to ensure that the trucks are performing flawlessly. So that's our approach.
Dimitri, I want to bring you in here quickly and see if you, in that first question as well, anything that you kind of wanted to add in terms of how you are viewing not only the industry challenges, but in your own development process.
Yeah, so one of the big challenges, especially in the commercial vehicle applications, is just the diversity of duty cycle, types of vehicles. And so one thing that XL Fleet did very early on was to put telematics devices on all of our systems and actually collect duty cycle data to ensure that the function of the systems and the design of the systems is really fit for purpose in the application. And as you can imagine, as you get into heavier vehicles, those duty cycle challenges can become much more significant. Take a heavy duty refuse truck, for example. If it's fully loaded, you've got to start that thing on a steep grade in someone's neighborhood, but you've also got to run at a relatively high speed to get back to the depot or the dump. And so the drivetrain has a lot of demands. If you don't design it properly, you won't get that mission accomplished. And especially when you talk about EV, you might get half of the neighborhood done and not the whole thing. So we've taken all of that data and we use that in the development process to make sure that the systems we're bringing to market are really fit for purpose, are reliable, and meet the needs of the application.
I want to switch into now this idea of really proving this development that you guys have been working on, that you just went through with your specific companies and what you've had to overcome and what you're looking at. But also, the idea that this is an exciting space is not that anyone's going to argue right now. There have been, though, some brand claims that haven't really been supported by publicly released performance data. So I kind of want to understand from each of you how your companies have tried to ensure some transparency during this development process as you're reporting out And really, when you do that, what kind of difference it makes for your company when it comes to talking to investors, really selling this to customers, and then really just from an industry perspective, adding to the credibility of the EV space. So just with that, Jagdeep, if you could talk more about your development process too, but then also this idea of how you support that with publicly available information about the tests that you've run.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Transparency is one of the most important and probably biggest mixing factors in the battery industry today. Let me quickly talk about the development process briefly and then get into that question. So yeah, for us, the key development, I think, innovation was the need for very fast cycle time. So battery chemistry development is all about you try something out and you characterize it in your test labs and you redesign it. And the faster you can get that feedback back, the more experiments you can try and the more you can improve. So we were targeting in the beginning, trying to get a 24-hour cycle. So design the cell, we have our own equipment and test lab on site where we have all kinds of, almost every flavor of battery test tool that you can get that can run literally overnight. And the next morning, the engineers can get feedback on the design and modify it. That's been one of the key steps that we've been able to use to kind of address these fundamental chemistry challenges. Relative to transparency, the reason why it's so important, and honestly, the battery industry has gotten a bad rap because, as actually as you said, a lot of people make claims that are kind of baseless. But even worse than that, what happens a lot of times is people make claims and they will reveal partial data about the performance of their cells and kind of not reveal the other key parts that also have to be there. And the average observer doesn't really even know what questions to ask. So it's very difficult to really evaluate how real a particular claim is. QuantumScape has been around for 10 years, and we've seen. It wouldn't be too much of an exaggeration to say there's a battery claim made every week, pretty much, and you never hear from these guys again because they don't have any data. So we took the approach of wanting to just, actually, rather than make claims, just kind of show the data. For 10 years, we were in development. We didn't issue a single press release because we didn't have the level of data that we felt was needed. Once we went public late last fall, we had a battery showcase day in December, in which we presented a full suite of performance data around the key metrics that are required to be met simultaneously. So you need to have data on what's the cycle life of your cells. That's not enough. You need to know cycle life under high rates of current densities, which is basically high power or which you need to drive a car and to charge a car, under unelevated temperature. So if you elevate the temperature, batteries can be made to work better for a short amount of time, but you have to be able to work across the full temperature range. So the data we showed was literally a very complete set of testing around cycle life, temperature range, current density, aggressive driving track conditions, and so on. And that complete set of data really provides the world with an objective sort of way to assess the level of performance that the QuantumScape cells deliver. Obviously, our customers can run those tests on their own in their labs, and they've done that. But releasing that information to the public is one way to really build that transparency. We hope the rest of the industry follows suit and starts releasing performance data like that.
Well, I think the last point you made is a key one, right? Is that many customers are very educated now, and they're very passionate about this really transformation. So they are doing this on their own. And as you and I have chatted in the past, and Lionel, we know that there are tons of questions around this. So I think that with the added additional, individuals who are scrutinizing you guys, I think for sure it's important that you have these publicly out there before these questions maybe even come up. I want to go to the idea of subsidies because, as I mentioned at the top, I mean, really the driver of many of the buying trends that we've seen over the past decade or so, it's been driven by very local and national subsidy programs in the U.S. It's intended to support the growth of the industry and the transformation from a consumer perspective. But I really want to know, kind of from your perspective, if you've seen that really trickle down. And I know Jagdeep has already mentioned that one plan doesn't solve everything, and it's not the key. So the administration's 2030 declaration. In context of the past subsidies, if you could compare and contrast that. So I know there was a lot there, but just first kind of maybe give us a bit of an overview on how those subsidies in the past have helped change, and then where you sort of see this new declaration coming into play. And Dimitri, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, I would say in the commercial vehicle space, as you mentioned, a lot of the incentives have been regional and local. And so they've been kind of spotty. We've been fortunate with the products that we've brought to market being cost effective. We've been able to generate, our more than 4,000 system sales without incentives for the most part. I think the one thing the administration did early on was to ask for a valuation of carbon. And if you think about really what we're all trying to do in terms of driving sustainability, if we can really get aligned around the economics of the real impact of carbon and therefore the value of what all of these solutions can provide, that's going to provide a much more holistic push to drive adoption. We're certainly, I think, all trying to make sure that we're driving costs down and we're able to provide an attractive financial return to customers. At XL Fleet, we focus on reliability, sustainability, and that positive financial return. And that's what we think really drives adoption in the industry.
Lionel, on this point too, I mean, maybe if you could also kind of go back in time and look at those past subsidies, how they've helped or not, maybe in your mind, and then also now with this big declaration from the Biden administration, how you foresee that really impacting your business going forward.
Oh, and I'll actually combine the former question with this one. So what we've been a beneficiary of is, quite frankly, people coming to our headquarters, at Romeo. And from our data pieces, we don't win any business without being transparent in terms of the data. So we're very, very transparent down from cell selection recommendations to our customers, all the way up to the pack recommendations, configurations that we offer, etc. Because ultimately, my data is a truck kicking butt on the track, which we've been doing since the back end of 2018. So that transparency from a data standpoint really helps get our customers comfortable. And by the time we get integrated within their vehicle, it's a no-brainer. It's an afterthought. They know exactly how it's going to work, the exact conditions, as well as the corner cases. But with that said, we've also been building a business, as I've told you before, for a reality without incentives, right? Because we believe one day incentives may go away, administrations change, that's just the way of life. What we want is trucks working without that and people's business models making sense when they're powered by Romeo. However, it's driving this administration mandate is accelerating conversations that we're having, and quite frankly, accelerating additional partnerships that we may have, earmarked for later on in our journey, bringing them to the table sooner. And the beauty about this is the nonsense is going to get shaken out, right? Because there's going to be a lot of tailwind in terms of funds. By the end of the day, the vehicles have to perform, and the vehicles will perform in a Romeo-powered battery, and it's that simple. So that's what it's doing for our business. So I expect to own a big amount of share based upon safety, reliability, energy density, and configurability.
One of the frustrating things I imagine that must be happening with all of you is, with the pandemic preventing us from being together in person and, watching that video at the beginning. I really miss being right with everybody and really feeling, the power of these vehicles, being around them. So on that, point in terms of how you kind of are also communicating this, your customers and your partners, what's that relationship been like, over the past year or so? And then maybe if you could each talk about one partnership that you have been really excited about. We could go into that as well. So Jagdeep, let's start with you in terms of, the customer relationship that you might have, right? Really being able to show that to them, make them feel it, right? At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about is mobility. And then the partnership that you believe is really exciting for you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to build a product that your customer wants, and so we've been very fortunate to have had this, really long-term relationship with Volkswagen, one of the largest car companies in the world. So we started that relationship back in 2012. They kept increasing their level of commitment and investment to the point where they ended up with north of $300 million invested in the company directly. They've also got an undisclosed sum committed to help us build a manufacturing joint venture to industrialize these batteries. It's been a fantastic partnership over the years. They've tested many generations of cells. And that deep partnership is what allowed us to pretty seamlessly get through this COVID year where nobody was able to travel. They weren't able to come here. We weren't able to go there. But because the key players knew each other so well, we were able to use Zoom meetings and kind of make a lot of progress that way. So I think at the end of the day, if you're selling a product, there has to be a customer that cares about it. And if that customer cares about it enough to say, not only will we be a customer of this when you are ready to ship it, but we want to help you get it ready for customer deployment. How can we help? Can we invest in the company? Can we help you ramp up production? Then you have something of real value. And so we've been very fortunate to have VW help us every step of the way on the investment side, the manufacturing side, and of course they're going to be the end customer that takes delivery of the product.
Gotcha. And we're talking on April 1st here, and we know this week, Volkswagen had tried to kind of be cute with the Volkswagen thing, but it at least shows that there is such a push there to an electric future. I want to go to Dimitri next year, and again, just talk about what your relationships have been like with your customers, your partners, over the past year or so, and then one exciting partnership that you kind of want to kind of share in terms of how it demonstrates where you're going for the future.
Sure. We do a lot of work directly with the end fleets, and these are folks running ambulance fleets. They're delivering packages, they're delivering the mail. So despite the pandemic, they were still operating, and they needed to replace their vehicles and upgrade the fleets. And so we kept the business going. We were actually able to triple our revenue last year during the pandemic. And that speaks to the repeat business we're getting from a lot of committed customers in terms of their operations. So we were fortunate in that regard. A couple of the, I think, really exciting partnerships that we've recently announced, one with Curb Tender to bring a range of electrified refuse trucks to market. They've got an expertise in the refuse bodies and how to really take advantage of the electric drivetrain and backbone that we'll provide on the vehicle. And then the other one is actually on the infrastructure side with the UBS Arena. We just announced a partnership with them to provide charging infrastructure, shuttle vehicles with this new arena for the Islanders in New York City. So those are two exciting developments for us.
All right, great stuff. That's hockey, right? I still really...
Correct.
I'll never understand why their seasons are going into the summer. Lionel, lastly with you, some partnerships that you might feel really represent what you're doing in the future and in this past year.
Sure, man. So a couple that we're excited about. So, well, the past year, first of all, customer relationships and partnerships have actually deepened. Because again, what matters in the commercial vehicle space are profit per mile, uptime, return on investment. So we spend a lot of 2020 doing robust test tracking and test campaigns with customers. And again, they're getting, especially since everyone was home, customers are getting better at shaking out the noise. So conversations are getting smarter, even more collaborative, which is right up Romeo's alley because all of the value chain expertise that we have internally. But with that said, a couple of partnerships we're excited about is, of course, the Heritage Environmental Partnership. They're a multi-billion-dollar private company. I hope, as I've joked with you before, probably one of the largest companies that no one knows about. They have thousands of trucks that need to be electrified, and we are going to electrify 500 vehicles with them, no matter who the OEM is. And so what that is, it's a game changer. So we were side by side with Heritage Environmental, actually vetting OEMs to participate in our program. Now, we did announce that we've selected the partners. We haven't said the names yet, but we will be doing so over the next coming days and weeks. So excited about that partnership, the game changer. As well as the Republic Services, $29 billion waste management company. So we announced an alliance partnership with them. We're starting with the first pillar of retrofitting 2 refuge vehicles to showcase our hardware and software chops. We're going to be finishing the route, showing the wall that powered by Romeo, a refuge electrification, it's a no-brainer. And there's some other pillars that we will be announcing over time as well. So it shows where we're going, that we are the foundational technology to electrification of the commercial vehicle space. We're not beholden to any one OEM or on any one part of the value chain. So where we're going is, we want these fleet managers to say, I'll buy any truck once it's powered by Romeo.
I think it's a great segue to the final set of questions for the prepared remarks part of this, and we're going to get to your questions shortly, and I see them queued up. So you teased your milestones coming up for you, Lionel, and we talked about this in our last conversation. I believe it was back in November, where you talked about the other applications. We didn't have time today to kind of get into where all of you can use your technologies in other ways. But since Lionel, you brought it up, let's talk more about some of those other milestones that you're looking at. And then just overall, where do you see the EV market ending at the end of the year? And then maybe your own 2030 declaration.
Sure. So from an electrification standpoint, what we see, the key milestones are extremely simple. Continuing first and foremost to be committed to technology. We're a technology company, rapid execution of our innovation roadmap. So the key milestones are you see continuous improvements in energy density, moving from single cell fault tolerance to multi-cell fault tolerance, launching our enterprise connectivity platform, which is a battery brain, if you will, that allows our fleet managers to save hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of a truck at the low end. So these are the key milestones from a technology standpoint. Also, efficient scaling. So on the manufacturing side, ensuring that we are full speed ahead and putting in our integrated lines to making sure that we're fully capacitized to support the outsized demand that we're growing. And last but not least, of course, growing the quality order book. Hope you've heard me talk about this before. We're in deep discussions there. Again, we've selected our heritage environmental fleet partners. And it'll be we have a great anchor provider that will be amazing. And so you'll see us really focus on diversifying the order book and bringing online more high quality, great customers for the backlog. My 2030 declaration is rather simple. Our goal, again, is to really drive the acceleration of electrification across the industrial transportation space, right? So what you will see is Romeo-powered vehicles, Romeo-powered fleets with multiple OEMs taking a sizable market share, as well as Romeo-powered product in adjacent industries, such as aviation, such as agriculture, such as mining. You will be seeing Romeo Power stamped. If someone is serious about electrification, if there's an industry that's truly committed there, Romeo Power will be playing a big part. And last but not least, you'll see us stand up. Software is such an understated pillar of what we're doing. So 2030, you're going to see vertical integration from cell to software at Romeo Power. So we're going to be a full green energy accessibility company by 2030.
Cell to software. I like that. I like that a lot. Lionel, thanks so much. We'll have questions for you in a little bit, but Dimitri, same questions here for you. Where are we going to be in 10 years at the end of this year? And what is your 2030 declaration?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of this year, pretty clearly, we're still going to be in the early stages of the transformation of this industry. There is no one technology that we're going to be able to flip the switch and make all of these diverse applications work. So it's going to be a long transformation. We think we have a great approach to really tailor the technology and the architectures to the specific applications of the vehicles. We're seeing a lot of increased opportunity around the world. So outside of North America, with the great foundation of business that we have here. And so in 10 years, I believe we're going to be really driving that transformation to sustainable electrified drive in markets all across the world.
Global view. Thank you. And Jagdeep, finally for you, hearing all these thoughts, where do you see things for you and for the industry?
Yes, I mean, we've got a number of key milestones that we're trying to hit, in the near term. Obviously, we showed that the core technology works really well. We showed that in our December battery showcase. We announced that we could stack up these layers and then making multi-layer cells on our February earnings call. We need to, get these cells into customers' hands. We need to turn up our factory so we can produce a lot more of these cells and have test cars running on test tracks. We get into commercial production, in the 24, 25 timeframe. By the end of the decade, if we can execute the way we think we can and deliver a battery that has higher energy density, so it's longer range, fast charge times, better life characteristics, safer and lower cost, to the market that you really start to narrow the gap with the combustion engine, which really, in our view, sets the stage for EVs to fully blossom, if you will, into what they can become. And so we see a very significant fraction of the automotive market being electrified. Maybe tens of percent up from today's, maybe 2 or 3%, which is a massive change because it's a very big industry, and if we can deliver and ramp up production capacity, we think there really is an opportunity to make this transformation real by the end of the decade.
Well, let's make a pact that we talk again in 10 years. We'll check in on your declaration, see how you guys did. I would love that. All right, let's get to the questions here. And the first one, not surprisingly, is about the infrastructure plan. 174 billion, over 10 years, and most of this is, around kind of the EV space. But specifically here, the question is about having now 500,000 charging stations by 2030. How does this apply to all of your businesses? Is it good? Dimitri, we'll start with you first.
Well, for sure, this should be helpful to our customer base and therefore helpful to our business. We're in position to provide the solutions that the fleet customers need as they've got more vehicles that need to be plugged in. And if the administration wants to help with that, that's going to be great.
All right. And the next question, really, I don't know if they were on with us in November, but could be for Jagdeep and for Lionel. Since all three of your companies operate at a different stage of the EV power value chain, is there a possibility you could work with one another, and in what capacity? So some more matchmaking here, but we know with a nascent industry, there tends to be some early M&A. So I'd love for Jagdeep and Lionel to kick this off. I don't know if you guys ever followed up with that conversation back in November. And then also Dimitri, feel free to jump in on how you guys might work with one another.
Yeah, we absolutely did follow up. Our teams actually connected. I think it was a great introduction, great to meet Lionel and his team. Look, the companies are very complementary. We make batteries. Lionel makes packs, buys batteries to put into packs, and we don't make packs. So it's completely non-overlapping. I think, if we had batteries today, we'd love to provide them to Lionel to put into packs and achieve his goals of getting to 500 miles of range with 15-minute charge. That is the path that we're on in terms of our technology. We look forward to working with Romeo Power to help us both achieve our joint goals.
Glad to hear it.
I agree with Jagdeep wholeheartedly. First of all, thank you publicly, Jagdeep, for following up and having great discussions. And Jagdeep is absolutely right. What he's doing from the solid state standpoint is extremely important for the industry, because as you know, it'll unlock mass electrification, not only in the CV space, but such as in the aviation space. So we're very excited to get our hands on our QS product in time, so we can put a kick butt pack on the road together.
Super.
Dimitri, I don't want you to feel left out here. So do you want to join their party, or are you just waiting around?
Well, as a system integrator, we could be their customer, both of their customers. So when QuantumScape has cells, available, we'll certainly look at them. We've got multiple battery suppliers now. We're focused on making sure that we have the right technology for our customers in the applications that they're running. And certainly having all of these folks in the industry trying to develop the best solutions is actually good for us. I'd rather they put the capital in to manufacture that stuff than us.
Oh, if I got
sounds
this one.
good.
Well, Dimitri,
Okay.
Dimitri, follow up with me after. I'm pretty sure I have a solution for you today.
Ooh, okay. See, this has to happen more often, you guys. I want to talk about the next question coming here in the queue, and it's about another very popular, capital letter acronym, and that's SPAC. Each of you went public via SPAC, so please discuss why going public was right for your company, and also why a SPAC.
Yeah, happy to start. I mean, look, the first and foremost, doing a SPAC means you're going public. So you have to be ready to be a public company. We thought we were ready for a number of different reasons. We thought our core technology had been demonstrated. We had this tremendous customer support with Volkswagen, so the market risk was low, technology risk was low. and really we wanted to get the financing risk out of the way. And going public allows us to raise a lot of capital. We raised about $1 billion last year. We just did a secondary offering, a follow-on offering last week, raised another about $500 million. So we got $1.5 billion, in the bank approximately, which is going to fund those capital-intensive plants that Dimitri doesn't want to get into the business of doing. So, but basically, the reason why we chose a SPAC route was it's just a more streamlined process. I mean, Romeo can talk about this and so Dimitri, but basically, I've done a regular way IPO at my last company, Infinera, which you mentioned in the introduction. That was it was a fun process, but it's about a year or more to go through that process. Whereas the SPAC process was a few months and just really fast, efficient, and effective. So yeah, in hindsight, I definitely feel it was the right call. And now we're capitalized at the right level to really mass produce these cells and get them deployed.
Anybody else want to add on to this before we move on?
Yeah.
Sure,
So
I'll
and
jump
I would.
in.
Go ahead,
For
Dimitri.
us at
Go ahead.
Fleet, the benefit was really the amount of capital we could bring in very quickly. So we were looking to potentially do a private raise. It would have been a much lower amount of capital. And so now, we've got $400 million in the bank, and we can really go very aggressively in terms of implementing our strategy. We don't have to do things sequentially anymore. We can do a lot of stuff in parallel and really maximize the growth of the company.
Yeah, and look, I echo both leaders here. At Romeo, we always knew we had the technology, and again, being able to be selected by one of the world's largest OEMs, the back end of 2018, from a commercial vehicle provider, we knew that we had the technology. What we were looking for is a way to scale, to really unleash the gambit and provide the demand that we are confident in onboarding. So that was one of the biggest aspects, to get Fortress balance sheet, more than $300 million on the balance sheet, so that we can move sparingly in terms of innovation, ramping, and growing the order book. But also, the one more thing I'll say is really wanted to onboard a strategic leadership team within our board of directors. So, the RMG acquisition team provided that. They're energy guys, strategic mindset, really pushing and really in for the long term at Romeo. So those were the two most important aspects of us going this route.
And we have time for a few more. So the next one is for Jagdeep. What is a solid state battery? Why does it matter? And companies have been trying to crack this for a long time. How have you been able to succeed?
Yeah, it's a great question. So very quickly, a normal battery has three layers. There's a cathode, an anode, and in the middle is a separator. And that whole cell is flooded with something called electrolyte, which is a liquid through which lithium ions move. And all a battery does is, when the battery is fully discharged, lithium sits in the cathode. When you charge it up, you force it to go into the anode, where it sits in a carbon or silicon lattice. Until you discharge it, when it moves back down to the cathode. Now, the single biggest thing you can do to increase the energy density of a battery is to get rid of that carbon anode and replace it with a pure lithium metal anode. Lithium metal is the theoretically highest density anode you can get. You can get 50 to 80% more energy density, but lithium metal anodes don't work with today's liquid electrolytes. They react with the liquid, causing what are called dendrites, which are these needle-like crystals of lithium that will short circuit the cell and cause, obviously, a catastrophic failure, or fire, or explosion. So to make lithium metal work, you have to come up with a solid state electrolyte. And that's the problem the industry was working on for 45 years unsuccessfully, until we were lucky enough to be able to, through a lot of hard work, make a material that can function as a solid state electrolyte or solid state separator without causing dendrites under a wide range of operating conditions. And once you have that solid state separator, you can get rid of that carbon anode and replace it with an anode of pure metallic lithium, achieving that 50 to 80% energy density improvement, but also getting rid of the fast charge bottleneck. In today's cells, what limits your charge time is the fact that it takes time for lithium to diffuse into the carbon particle in the anode. With the lithium metal anode, you get rid of that bottleneck, and now you can charge it up more quickly. This is where our 15-minute charge comes from. You also lower the cost because there's no anode material and anode manufacturing line anymore. So all five of those benefits of energy density, fast charge, cost, safety, and life stem from that one change of getting rid of the anode of carbon and replacing it with an anode of lithium, which is made possible by the solid state electrolyte. That's what solid state cells are, and that's what delivers the benefit that we're talking about.
And we also just want to remind folks that this will be available online for replay. So, please re-watch what Jagdeep said if you still have kind of more questions. And I think, Jagdeep, thanks for going through that again. I know you get asked this quite often. A question for all of you coming from the perspective of what's happening right now. Millions more people could be driving than there really are, even with the currently available charging infrastructure, but they are not. So what makes you think your product improvements are addressing the real obstacle to acceptance?
Sure. So in the minds, range anxiety is a real thing, unfortunately. So in the commercial vehicle arena, what we're doing at Romeo is, honestly, we don't want you to charge. What we're driving for is the longest range as possible. Okay, so that's how we're addressing it, by doing this safely, reliably, being the most energy dense in the market, and being configurable, right? So the fact that we can do from 300 volts to 1,000 volts, as we get up voltage with a system, you get less wires, is a more efficient system, lighter vehicle, which translates to more range. So we start from the customer and work backwards. Okay, so what we do is you give the longest range. That's why we're driving from that 300 to that 500. And then if or when you have to charge, you can do it quickly. So to Jagdeep's point, getting to that 15-minute charge is exactly what we're driving for at Romeo as well. So that's how we're addressing it. We want to take range anxiety away. We want to do hundreds of miles, unlock the 1,000-mile day in the commercial vehicle arena. Again, and if we put our technology in the passenger space, that's a game changer. You won't have to charge for days.
Anybody else want to add on to sort of this question of why and how really this question of now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo a lot of what Lyle said. Look, as I mentioned in the opening, it's great that there's an administration that understands the importance of electrification and is looking to provide incentives to electrify. But at the end of the day, if the product is not competitive with a combustion engine, you can't make people buy a product they don't want to buy. You've got to get the product itself to be competitive. And the heart of the EV powertrain, of course, is the battery. So, we believe that if you can deliver a battery that has these characteristics, again, that we've been talking about, that Lyle mentioned, longer range to address the range anxiety, that's basically energy density, faster charge times, better life, safety, cost. When you have a battery that has those characteristics, the gap between an EV powertrain and a combustion engine-based powertrain is a lot narrower than it is today. That, we believe, is one of the key enablers that will, in fact, allow more widespread adoption of EVs. And again, love all the assist that we get from government policies. Having great government policies is definitely an amplifier of that transition. But at the core, you have to have a product that's competitive, and we think what we're doing can really play a role in helping get there.
I think we have time for just one more question before we wrap today. And this question is looking at the potential combination of wind and solar as a renewable energy EV charger. How realistic is that? And, do you believe that role could then become a more consequential factor in broader acceptance of EVs themselves, just really the source of the power at the origin, really, of charging?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one to begin with. Certainly, I think wind and solar, renewable energy in general, has a big role to play in this transformation, because if we're generating the electricity from carbon-emitting assets, then the benefits of all these electrified drive systems on vehicles are going to be muted. So that's one significant aspect. The other aspect has to do with, especially for our customers, where they're trying to potentially recharge, dozens or hundreds of vehicles at a particular location. The ability to get enough power at that location when those vehicles need to be charged can be a big challenge. And so where you can supplement with solar, where you can supplement with more local renewable generation, and also where you can bring expertise to improve the efficiency of that facility. You can enable that charging to happen without spending huge amounts of money to upgrade the power supply to the facility. So those are some aspects of how renewable wind and solar can really play into the transformation.
And
Yeah,
Lionel,
I fully concur with that. I think the big opportunity that electrified powertrains deliver is to decouple the transportation energy use from the source of that energy. So today, the transportation powertrain is basically tied to fossil fuels. That's how you power. It doesn't matter how clean your grid is. Your grid could be wind, solar, or renewable, but your transportation is still burning fossil fuels. By electrifying the powertrain, you now enable the transportation sector to also get the same benefits that the broader economy is getting with renewables. So as we increase to a higher fraction of renewables, you automatically get that improvement. So if you're in Sweden with a relatively clean grid, you get the benefits of that in your EV. Whereas if you're driving combustion engine-based cars, then you wouldn't get that benefit. And it works in reverse as well. Having EVs or having a better battery, for example, really does enable more renewables, because renewables, as you know, are not as dispatchable. They generate energy when the sun shines or the wind blows, and so by storing that energy and deploying it when you need it later, you actually can enable a greater penetration of renewables on the grid. So it's kind of a mutually virtuous cycle there.
Yeah, and I'll wrap up by saying that's exactly right. So we're all about democratizing our energy, right? So our battery strategy has always been the same battery that's driving the wheels is also feeding the grid in a vehicle to grid standpoint, for example. And also the first or second life of that same battery can be a stationary storage application to store that energy and give back. So we have this full sustaining ecosystem that's managed by the great battery management software enterprise connectivity platforms that we offer for a fully enclosed renewable ecosystem. So what the other leader said is fully up our alley, and that's exactly what we do at Romeo.
I had a feeling, Lionel, you were going to bring all those other applications in and really take us full circle. So I appreciate that very much. I appreciate all of your time this afternoon, and all of you also for watching. Again, you can watch a replay of this online later on, but I want to again thank Dimitri, thank Lionel, and thank Jagdeep for being here. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'm going to throw things back now over to Rod. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Hope. Great to be here.
What a great conversation. I don't think there's a better way to gain insight into this revolution than hearing from CEOs of companies leading the way. I want to thank all of our panelists for their time today. As I said earlier, if you missed any part of this broadcast or want to rewatch prior broadcasts, simply go to the NAIS website. That's all we have for today. I appreciate you sharing your time with us and look forward to speaking with you during our next broadcast in May.